The space station was silent that night. Only the sound of machines breathing, air filters working, and the slow hum of power kept the man company. He lived alone, far away from Earth, on the edge of known space. His name was Daniel, a quiet man who had long ago chosen loneliness over company. For years, no one had come to his door. No visitors. No friends, no family. Just him, his ship, and the stars. But tonight something changed. A knock. Soft at first. Then again. Knock, knock, knock. Daniel froze. He thought it was his mind playing tricks. Nobody should be here. This station was old, forgotten, not even on most maps anymore. Who could have found him? He walked slowly to the door, hand on the blaster at his side. He pressed the panel and the door slid open with a hiss of air. And there she was, a girl. Small, pale, with strange eyes that glowed faintly like stars. Her clothes were torn, her face dirty. She looked too young, too fragile, like she had walked through fire and storms just to reach this place. Daniel had never seen anyone like her. She was not fully human. Her skin was almost translucent, her hair a strange silver that shone even in the dim light. She looked weak, yet her eyes held something sharp, something powerful. Before he could ask who she was, the girl spoke. Her voice was soft, broken, but clear enough. Human. Call me your daughter. I want you to be my father. Daniel stared at her. He thought maybe he had misheard. Maybe this was some kind of trick. Out here people lied, stole, and killed to survive. Why would a stranger, a child, say this? What did you say? His voice was rough, unused to speaking. She looked up, eyes wide, shimmering with something between fear and hope. Father, you are human. I want you to be my father. Daniel felt his stomach twist. He was not anyone's father. He never had been.
Once, many years ago, he had almost built a family, but war and loss had taken that away.
He had chosen this life of solitude for a reason. No attachments, no pain, no responsibilities. And now this girl out of nowhere was asking for the one thing he had promised himself never to be. He should have closed the door. He should have told her to leave. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the way she trembled in the cold air of the station. Maybe it was the way her voice shook when she said the word father. Or maybe it was the eyes that looked at him not as a stranger, but as if he was the only safe place left in the galaxy. He frowned. Where did you come from? The girl shook her head. Far, too far. They want me, but I escaped. Please, don't let them take me back. Daniel's instincts screamed at him. Danger. If someone was chasing her, if she was running, then bringing her inside would bring trouble. And Daniel hated trouble. Trouble meant fighting, bleeding, losing. Trouble meant reopening the wounds he had buried long ago. But the girl's legs wobbled and she almost fell. Daniel caught her without thinking. Her skin was cold, too cold. She was weak, starving maybe. She leaned against him like she had known him all her life and whispered again. Please, Father, just for tonight. Daniel stood frozen, holding her small frame in his arms. He could push her away right now, close the door, and forget she ever appeared. That would be the smart thing to do. That would keep him alive, keep him safe, and yet, he didn't. He carried her inside. The station was no home, but he gave her a chair by the heater, poured her a cup of water, and set food before her. She ate quietly, carefully, like someone who hadn't eaten in days. She never stopped looking at him, those star-like eyes following his every move. And every time she spoke, she called him Father. Father, thank you. Father, is it safe here? Father, and will you protect me? Daniel didn't answer. He didn't want to answer. Each time she said the word, it felt heavy, like chains wrapping around his heart. But he also didn't stop her. He watched her fall asleep in the chair, her breathing slow, her small hand clutching the edge of his coat as if afraid he would vanish. Daniel stood there in silence for a long time. The hum of the machines filled the room again. The station was still the same, quiet, lonely, cold. But inside, something was different. For the first time in years, Daniel was not alone, and that terrified him more than anything. As he turned away, his mind whispered the questions he did not want to ask. Who is she really? Who is chasing her? And why, out of all the humans in the galaxy, did she come to him? He didn't know the answers. But deep inside, he knew one thing. This was not the end of his loneliness. This was only the beginning. The station woke slowly the next morning. The lights hummed back to full glow, the machines clicked, and the old pipes carried water through the walls. Daniel, as always, woke early. But today felt different. He was not alone. The girl was still there. She had fallen asleep on the chair, curled like a small shadow, her silver hair falling over her face. Her hand still clutched the corner of his coat, as if holding on to a promise only she believed in. Daniel stood for a moment, staring at her. A stranger, an alien, a child who called him father without hesitation. He could not understand it. Why him? Why not someone else? He thought about waking her and telling her to leave. It was the easiest choice. Send her away, go back to silence. But something inside him hesitated. The kind of hesitation he hated. The kind that reminded him he still had a heart. Instead, he went to the small kitchen and prepared a simple meal. The smell of warm food drifted into the room. Slowly, the girl stirred. She blinked, rubbed her strange glowing eyes, and looked around until she saw him. Then she smiled, a tired, gentle smile that made her look less like a stranger and more like someone who belonged. "Good morning, Father," she whispered. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Stop calling me that." The girl tilted her head. "But you are." "I'm not," he said flatly. He placed the food in front of her. "Eat, then you'll tell me everything." She nodded and ate quietly. Small bites, careful, polite. She did not waste a crumb. Daniel watched her, trying to see what she really was. Her skin glowed faintly under the light. Her fingers were long and delicate, moving with strange precision. She was no normal child, but she looked fragile. Too fragile to be the enemy of anyone. When she finished, she folded her hands and stared at him. For a moment, she did not speak. Then softly, "Thank you, Father." Daniel sighed, rubbing his forehead. He should have been angry, but instead he felt something heavier, a memory. Long ago, someone else had called him father, a voice that now only lived in his dreams. The ache returned, sharp and unwanted. He stood up quickly, trying to bury it. "You can stay for now, but only for now. Understand?" The girl nodded. She did not argue. She only followed him with those wide eyes as he began his daily work. The hours passed strangely. Normally, Daniel's days were filled with silence. He fixed panels, checked the ship systems, wrote logs that no one would ever read. But today there was another presence. She walked behind him, quiet as a shadow. When he adjusted wires, she handed him tools without being asked. When he cleaned filters, she held the light steady for him. When he moved heavy crates, she tried to help, her thin arms straining but refusing to give up. Daniel did not ask her to do these things, but she did them anyway. At first, it irritated him. He was not used to someone moving in his space, touching his things. But slowly, he noticed something else. She never complained. She never asked for more food or comfort. She only stayed close, as if afraid he would vanish if she looked away. She called him father again and again. Like the word itself gave her strength, and Daniel, though he told himself he hated it, never told her to stop again. Later, when the day grew quiet, Daniel sat by the viewport staring at the stars. He liked this spot. It was where he could remind himself the galaxy was bigger than his problems. The girl sat beside him. For a while she said nothing. Then her voice broke the silence. "Do you hate me, Father?" The question caught him off guard. He turned to her, frowning. "What? Your eyes? They are heavy, like you carry a stone inside. People who hate me look at me like that. Do you hate me too?" Daniel swallowed. He had no answer. "Hate? No. Fear? Maybe confusion? Absolutely." Finally, he said, "I don't even know who you are." She looked down. Her small hands tightened in her lap. "I don't know who I am either. I only know. I need you. I need a father. And you are human. Humans are strong. Humans don't give up. That's why I chose you." Daniel stared at her. Chose him? Out of all the people in the stars, she came here to this forgotten man and chose him. The silence stretched long between them. Finally, he stood up. "It's late. You should rest." She nodded, lying down on the small bed he gave her. She pulled the blanket to her chin and whispered one last time, her voice soft, fading into sleep. "Good night, Father." Daniel stood in the doorway, watching her. His chest felt heavy again. He wanted to tell her to stop saying that word. He wanted to tell her she was wrong, that he was not what she thought, but the words never came. Instead, he turned off the lights, and as he walked away, he realized something he did not want to admit. For the first time in years, the silence of the station no longer felt like his friend. It felt like something was changing, something he could not control. And deep inside, Daniel knew this was dangerous because once bonds are made, they are hard to break. The days passed slowly, but not like before. Daniel had lived in silence for years, yet now the station no longer felt empty. Wherever he went, the girl followed. She never asked many questions. She never demanded much. She only stayed close, as if his shadow gave her safety. But Daniel began to notice something strange. The station was old. Too old. Its machines often failed, its lights flickered, and its systems needed constant repair. Yet, since the girl arrived, things changed. One morning, the water filters that had been clogged for weeks suddenly worked again. Daniel swore he had not touched them. Another time, the navigation screen, broken for months, flickered to life for a few seconds before going dark again. At first he thought it was luck. Old machines sometimes fix themselves after all. But soon there were too many coincidences. The lights glowed brighter when the girl was near. The hum of the engines grew smoother when she touched the walls. Even the air seemed cleaner, sharper, easier to breathe. Daniel tried to ignore it. He told himself he was imagining things. But one night he discovered the truth. The station was quiet again, too quiet. Daniel could not sleep. He walked the corridors, checking doors and panels like he always did when sleep avoided him. That was when he heard it, a whisper, not a human whisper, not words, a sound like flowing water mixed with static. He followed it down the hall, careful, silent, until he reached the small room where the girl slept. The door was half open. She sat on the floor, knees drawn to her chest, her silver hair glowing faintly in the dark. Her eyes were closed, but her lips moved quickly, whispering in that strange, flowing voice. Her hands pressed against the floor, and tiny sparks of light spread across the metal, crawling like veins. Daniel froze. It was her. She was speaking to something, or someone that he could not see. The sparks faded slowly and her whisper stopped. She opened her eyes, glowing brighter than ever, and for a moment she looked, not like a child, but like something far older, far more dangerous. Then she saw him. Her face softened and her voice turned small again. "Father, why are you awake?" Daniel stepped into the room, his voice sharp. "What were you doing?" She lowered her eyes. "Nothing. Don't lie to me," she bit her lip. For a moment she said nothing. Then quietly, "I was listening." "To what?" Daniel demanded. Her eyes flickered up to his. They were full of stars and secrets. "The dark," she said. "It speaks. I can hear it. And it can hear me." Daniel's chest tightened. He didn't like the way she said it. He didn't like the truth hiding in her words. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. "Because you would send me away," she whispered. "And I don't want to leave." "Please, Father, let me stay." Daniel turned away. He wanted to shout, to demand answers. But he didn't. Because deep down, he feared the answers more than the questions. Over the next days, more strange things happened. Once, when a storm of cosmic radiation hit the station, Daniel prepared for damage. But nothing happened. The shields, half broken for years, held strong. He later found the girl standing near the control panels, her hand pressed to the glass, her eyes glowing faintly. Another time, a warning light blinked red across the station. Daniel rushed to check the oxygen supply, dangerously low. But within minutes, the system balanced itself. He found the girl sitting near the air vents, humming softly like she was singing to the machines. Every time she said nothing. Every time she looked at him with innocent eyes, as if daring him to ask. And every time Daniel stayed silent. Because the truth was growing inside him. A truth he didn't want. This girl was no ordinary child. That night, the whispers returned. Daniel sat in his cabin pretending to read old reports, but his ears stayed sharp. The sound crawled through the air again, like voices carried on static. He followed it. This time, the girl was not alone, or at least, it didn't look like she was. She stood in the hallway, her hand stretched out, sparks running across the metal, and before her, in the flickering light, Daniel thought he saw shadows move, shapes, tall, thin, wrong. They bent and twisted like smoke trying to become solid. His heart hammered. He blinked once and the shadows were gone. Only the girl remained, breathing hard, her eyes burning brighter than stars. She turned, startled, when she saw him. "Father," Daniel stepped forward. "Who are you?" His voice was sharp, almost desperate. The girl shook her head. "I don't know. You're not telling me everything." Tears filled her eyes. "If I tell you, you will hate me. And I don't want that. Please, Father." "Don't ask yet." Daniel stared at her, torn between anger and pity. His mind screamed at him to push her away, to end this before it grew worse. But his heart, the part of him that still remembered loss, kept him frozen. Finally, he said only 3 words. "Go to sleep." The girl nodded, wiping her tears. She walked past him, small and fragile again, and disappeared into her room. Daniel stood alone in the hallway, staring at the walls that now felt alive. The station was no longer just a station, and the girl was no longer just a girl. Somewhere in the dark, something had begun. Something he did not understand. And Daniel knew one thing for certain. The silence he once loved was gone forever. The silence did not last long. For days, Daniel had felt it, a weight pressing on the station like a storm waiting to break. The girl acted calm, but her eyes often shifted to the windows, staring into the black sea of space as if she expected something to appear. And then, one night, it did. The alarm blared. Red lights flashed across the station walls. Daniel jumped from his chair, his hand already reaching for his blaster. He hadn't heard that sound in years, not since the wars. "Warning," the computer droned. "Unidentified ships detected. Approaching fast." Daniel ran to the control room. The girl was already there, her silver hair glowing faintly in the flashing red lights. Her hands gripped the edge of the console, her small frame trembling. "They found me," she whispered. Daniel froze. The words cut through him. "They found me." On the radar, 3 ships closed in like hunting wolves. Their signals were sharp, aggressive, and not friendly. Pirates, maybe. Slavers, maybe worse. Whoever they were, they wanted her. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Who are they?" The girl's voice broke. "The ones I ran from. They will take me back. They will use me. Please, Father, don't let them take me." Her voice cracked on the word father. Daniel's heart twisted. He had survived battles, lost friends, buried family. He had sworn never again. And now this child stood before him asking for something he had promised he would never give. Protection. The first ship fired. A beam of light scraped the station's shields, shaking the walls. Sparks rained down from the ceiling. The girl cried out, covering her ears. Daniel grabbed her arm and pulled her down behind the console. "Stay low," he ordered. Another strike hit. The shields were weak. One more and they would collapse. Daniel cursed under his breath. He had one old shuttle, hardly battle-ready. Running meant almost certain death. But staying meant handing her over. He looked at her, her eyes wide with fear, and something inside him made the choice before his mind could argue. "We're leaving." The docking bay roared to life as Daniel prepped the shuttle. The engines coughed and groaned, too old for speed, but it was all they had. The girl strapped herself into the co-pilot seat, clutching the harness with shaking hands. "They will follow," she whispered. "I know," Daniel muttered, punching buttons. "But they'll have to catch us first." The shuttle tore free from the station. Alarms screamed as enemy ships swarmed closer, their lights flashing like hungry predators. The girl shut her eyes tight. "They want me because of what I am, because of what I can do." Daniel's hands froze on the controls. He wanted to ask more, to demand answers, but now wasn't the time. The radar blinked red, 2 ships behind them, one circling ahead. Trapped. The enemy fired. Bolts of energy slammed into the shuttle, rattling the hull. Daniel gritted his teeth and twisted the controls, dodging between broken asteroids. The shuttle scraped against rocks, sparks flying, but he kept going. The girl opened her eyes, glowing brighter than ever. "Father, let me help," Daniel snapped. "No! Stay down!" But she didn't listen. She pressed her hands to the console. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the shuttle's engines roared louder, brighter, stronger than Daniel had ever heard. The ship shot forward like a spear of light, slipping past enemy fire with impossible speed. Daniel stared, shocked. "What did you—" "Later," she whispered, her face pale, sweat dripping. "Just fly." They broke through the trap, racing into open space. But the enemy was still behind them. Shots streaked past, one grazing the hull. The shuttle shook violently, alarms blaring. "They won't stop," the girl said, her voice small but steady. "They will chase us forever. Until I am theirs." Daniel looked at her. "A fragile child." A strange power, a hunted secret, and for the first time he felt something stronger than fear, anger. He slammed his fist on the console. Not while I'm alive. The enemy ships closed in again. One fired, hitting the wing. The shuttle spun out of control, alarms screaming louder. The girl screamed too, clutching her seat. Daniel fought the controls, dragging the ship steady. He breathed hard, sweat dripping. Listen to me. If they board us, hide. Don't come out. No matter what you hear. The girl shook her head violently. No, I won't leave you. I chose you to be my father. And fathers don't abandon their daughters. Daniel's chest ached. For a heartbeat, he wanted to deny it, to shout that he was no father. But the words stuck. He couldn't say them. Not now. Instead, he pulled the shuttle into a dive, slipping between asteroids, dodging beams of light. His hands moved with old skill, muscle memory from battles long past. The girl's eyes glowed. Her small hands pressed against the console again, feeding the engines with strange power. Together they ran. Together they fought. The chase roared on through the endless dark. Daniel didn't know if they could escape. The girl didn't know if her power would hold. The enemies didn't know the fire that burned inside a human who had already lost too much. But one thing was certain. This was no longer just survival. This was war. And for the first time in years, Daniel wasn't fighting for himself. He was fighting for her. The shuttle shook like a dying animal as it tore through the asteroid field. Metal screamed, alarms wailed, and smoke filled the cabin. Daniel's hands moved fast across the controls. But even he knew the truth. This ship wasn't built for running. Not against hunters like these. The girl sat beside him, clutching the harness. Her silver hair plastered to her face with sweat. Her strange, glowing eyes never blinked, not once. As the radar showed the enemy ships closing in again. They're still behind us, Daniel muttered, his voice like stone. They won't stop, the girl said. Her voice was soft but certain, like she already knew the outcome. Not until they have me, Daniel gritted his teeth. Then we make sure they don't. The first blast hit. The shuttle lurched, alarms screaming louder. Panels sparked and fire broke out near the rear compartment. Daniel cursed, slamming his hand on the extinguisher switch. The girl's small voice cut through the chaos. Father? Don't call me that right now, he snapped, fighting the controls. But she didn't stop. Father, listen. There's something you must know. Not now, he growled. Yes, now. Her voice cracked like thunder, stronger than he had ever heard it. If you don't know, you'll die. And then I'll be taken. Daniel froze for half a second. Her words carried no fear, only cold truth. Then talk, he barked. The girl pressed her trembling hands against the console. Her glowing eyes locked onto him. I am not just a child. I was made, created. They call me the key. Daniel's stomach turned. The key to what? To their weapon, she whispered. A weapon that can burn whole colonies, silence whole fleets. My body, my mind. I am the last piece that makes it work. That is why they hunt me. That is why I ran. Daniel's blood ran cold. He stared at her, the child who ate quietly, who followed him like a shadow, who called him father, like it was the only word she believed in. And now she told him she could end humanity itself. The ship jolted again as another blast grazed the wing. You should have told me sooner, Daniel muttered. She lowered her head. Would you have let me stay if I had? The silence that followed was heavy, sharper than any weapon. The enemy ships closed in. On the radar, 3 bright dots circled like wolves. They weren't firing to kill anymore, they were hurting, forcing the shuttle toward open space away from the safety of the asteroid field. They want us alive, Daniel realized. No, they want you alive, the girl shivered. And you dead. Daniel's grip tightened on the controls. Over my corpse. The girl looked at him with those strange, star-filled eyes. That is exactly what they want. Another blast. This one slammed into the rear, cutting engine power in half. The shuttle spun, alarms shrieking. Daniel wrestled with the controls, sweat running down his face. We can't outrun them, he admitted, his voice low but steady. Not like this. The girl nodded slowly. Then, let me. He turned to her, eyes blazing. No. Her voice was calm. It is the only way. I can give the ship power, more than it was ever built for. Enough to escape. Daniel shook his head. You'll burn yourself out. Better than being taken, she whispered. For a moment they stared at each other, an old soldier and a strange child bound by fate. Then Daniel growled, "Do it. But you stay alive, you hear me? You stay alive." The girl closed her eyes. Light spread from her fingertips into the console, brighter and brighter until the whole cabin glowed. The engines roared stronger than Daniel had ever heard. The shuttle shot forward like a comet, ripping through space at impossible speed. The enemy ships fired, but their shots missed, too slow to keep up. The shuttle weaved through the stars, cutting across debris, climbing higher and higher until the radar showed them falling back. They were escaping. But Daniel glanced at the girl and his stomach twisted. Her skin was pale, her breathing shallow, her body trembling. The light that poured from her hands flickered like a dying flame. "Stop," Daniel shouted. "That's enough. You'll kill yourself." She shook her head weakly. "Not yet. Not until we are safe." Minutes felt like hours. Finally, the radar cleared. The enemy ships were gone, lost in the black behind them. The shuttle slowed, the engines cooling. The girl collapsed forward, gasping for air. Daniel caught her before she fell from the seat. Her eyes flickered open, glowing faintly. "We made it. Didn't we, Father?" Daniel swallowed hard. His throat burned. He wanted to scold her, to tell her she was reckless, dangerous, that she had no right to risk her life like that. But instead, he only whispered, "Yeah, we made it." For the first time since the attack, the stars were quiet again. The shuttle drifted in open space, battered but alive. Daniel sat in silence, holding the girl as she slept against his arm. She was small, fragile, and yet inside her lived a power that could destroy worlds. He closed his eyes. He didn't want this. He didn't want her secrets. He didn't want this war. And yet, as he looked down at her, clinging to him even in sleep, he knew the truth. It didn't matter what she was. It didn't matter what danger followed, because she had chosen him. And for reasons he didn't understand, he was choosing her too. In the black sea of stars, the shuttle drifted on, hunted but free, for now. But Daniel knew the truth. This was not the end. It was only the beginning. The shuttle drifted in silence. Space stretched out forever, black and endless, broken only by the faint glow of distant stars. Daniel sat in the pilot's seat, hands on the controls, though the engines were quiet. His mind was louder than the machines. Beside him, the girl slept. Her head rested against his arm, her breathing soft and uneven. Even in sleep, her hand clutched the edge of his coat, as if she feared he would disappear. Daniel looked down at her, fragile, small, yet inside her was enough power to burn a world, and she had chosen him. He closed his eyes, and memories came like ghosts. A family he once almost had, a child whose laugh he could still hear in dreams, a promise he had broken long ago. The war had taken it all, leaving him with nothing but silence. He had told himself he was fine with that. Silence meant safety. Silence meant no pain, but now, silence felt wrong. Hours passed. Daniel checked the systems again and again, not because he needed to, but because it kept him from thinking too much. The shuttle was damaged, power low, fuel bleeding out. They had escaped, yes, but they couldn't run forever. Soon the hunters would find them again. As he worked, the girl stirred. Her eyes blinked open, glowing faintly in the dim light. "Father," she whispered. Daniel tensed. "You should rest." She shook her head. "I dreamed," he raised an eyebrow. "About what?" Her lips trembled. "About losing you." Daniel looked away. He didn't know what to say. Words felt heavy, useless. But she kept staring, waiting. Finally, he asked, "Why me? Out of all the people in this galaxy, why come to me?" Her answer was simple, but it cut deep. "Because you were alone. Like me." Daniel froze. "I felt it," she continued softly. "The dark speaks to me. I heard your silence, your pain. That is why I came. Because you understand." Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to argue, to deny it. But he couldn't. She was right. He understood loss better than most. And maybe that was why he hadn't thrown her out the first night. The girl looked down at her hands. "I am dangerous, Father. If I am taken, many will die. Whole colonies, maybe even Earth itself. You should not keep me. You should let me go." Daniel's jaw clenched. "And where would you go?" Her voice was small. "Nowhere, maybe. Nowhere is safer." Daniel slammed his hand against the console, startling her. No, that's not how this works. She blinked at him, eyes wide. Why? His voice shook with anger, but not at her. Because I've lost enough. I won't lose again. Not you, her lips parted. For the first time, she smiled faintly through her fear. Later, when the engines cooled and the stars passed slow, Daniel found himself speaking words he never thought he would. You know, I wasn't always alone. The girl tilted her head, listening. I had a family once. A wife, a daughter. War took them from me. After that, I promised myself no more attachments. No more bonds. Because when you care, you bleed. And I was tired of bleeding. The girl's hand reached out, small and trembling, and touched his arm. And now? Daniel looked at her. For years he had carried his pain like a shield. But sitting here with this strange child who called him father without fear, he felt the shield crack. Now, his voice was low, heavy. Now I don't know if I can keep that promise. They sat in silence for a while, the kind of silence that was no longer empty. The stars moved slowly outside the viewport, cold and endless. Then the girl whispered, Even if I die tomorrow, I am happy, because I had a father even for a short time. Daniel's breath caught. The words struck him like a blade. He turned away, hiding his face, but he couldn't stop the ache in his chest. He wanted to tell her not to talk like that. He wanted to tell her she wasn't going to die. But deep inside, he knew the danger was real. The hunters would come again. And next time, maybe they wouldn't escape. Still, one thing was certain. He would not abandon her. Hours later, as the girl slept again, Daniel stood by the viewport. His reflection stared back at him, an old soldier, tired and broken. But behind him, sleeping peacefully, was the reason he still breathed. The decision weighed heavy, but he had already made it. He would fight, not for himself, not for revenge, but for her, for the child who had chosen him, for the daughter he never thought he would have again. He placed a hand against the glass, staring into the stars. His voice was quiet but firm. You're my responsibility now, and I'll keep you safe, no matter what it costs. The darkness outside was endless, but inside the shuttle a spark had been lit. Daniel didn't know if they would survive the coming storm. He didn't know if he had the strength to protect her against the galaxy itself. But he knew one thing. For the first time in years, he was not running from life, he was running toward it, and that changed everything. The shuttle drifted through the cold dark, its engines patched but weak. Daniel knew they could not hide forever. The girl knew it too. She said nothing, but every time she looked out the window, her silver eyes glowed with quiet fear. The hunters would return, and when they did, there would be no more running. It happened 3 days later. The alarm screamed again, harsh and merciless. Red lights strobed across the cabin. On the radar, more ships appeared. 5 this time, surrounding them like a pack of wolves. Daniel's hands gripped the controls. His heart hammered, but his voice was steady. They've found us. The girl sat beside him, her small hands clenched tight. She whispered, They won't let us go this time. Daniel glanced at her. Fragile, glowing, terrified. Yet there was courage in her eyes, too, the kind he hadn't seen in years. No, he said firmly. They won't, not while I'm here. The first barrage struck. The shuttle rocked violently, sparks raining from the ceiling. The hull groaned under the pressure. Daniel pulled the ship into a sharp dive, dodging blasts as best he could. But the truth was clear. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and out of time. Father! The girl cried, clutching the seat as another explosion rocked them. Daniel didn't correct her this time. He didn't even flinch at the word. He just kept flying. The enemy hailed them. A voice cut through the static, cold and commanding. Human vessel. Surrender the child. You may live if you comply. Daniel's jaw tightened. He pressed the comm button. His voice came out like steel. Over my dead body. A pause. Then laughter, sharp and cruel. That can be arranged. The attack began again. The shuttle shook under the assault. Panels burst. Smoke filled the cabin. Alarms wailed in every direction. The girl screamed as sparks rained down, but Daniel pulled her close with one arm, shielding her even as he fought the controls with the other. Father, she whispered, her voice breaking, you can still leave me. If you do, they won't kill you. Daniel turned, his eyes blazing. Listen to me. I lost my family once. I let the galaxy take them from me. Never again. Do you hear me? Never again. Tears welled in her glowing eyes. She whispered, then You truly are my father. For the first time, Daniel didn't fight the word. He didn't push it away. Yes, he said, his voice shaking but strong. I am. Something changed in her then. Her fear burned away, replaced by something fierce. She sat straighter, her eyes glowing brighter, her hands pressing against the console. If you are my father, she said, her voice like fire, then I will be your daughter, and we will fight together. Light poured from her hands into the shuttle. The engines roared back to life, stronger than ever. The weapons, long dead, sparked and hummed. The whole ship glowed with her power. Daniel grinned through the smoke. That's my girl. The battle turned. The shuttle surged forward faster than the hunters expected. Daniel weaved through their fire, pulling maneuvers no ordinary pilot would dare. The girl fed her energy into the systems, guiding the ship, making it stronger, sharper, alive. Together they struck back. The old cannons spat fire, cutting through one enemy ship, then another. Explosions lit the dark, scattering debris like falling stars, but the enemy still pressed on. More ships surrounded them, firing relentlessly. The shuttle shook, panels cracking, alarms screaming warnings Daniel didn't have time to read. Father, the girl cried, straining as her light flickered. I can't hold this much longer. Daniel's teeth clenched. Just a little more. We're almost through. The largest ship moved in, blocking their path. Its guns glowed, ready to end it all. Daniel's hands tightened on the controls. This is it. The girl's eyes blazed like stars. Then let's finish it together. She screamed, not in fear but in defiance, and poured everything she had into the shuttle. The engines exploded with light brighter than the sun. Daniel pushed forward, charging straight at the enemy. The hunters fired. Beams of death streaked through space. But the shuttle was faster, stronger, alive. It smashed through the fire, cutting close to the enemy ship, and unleashed its final shot. The explosion tore through the dark, blinding, endless. The enemy ship split apart, its pieces scattering into the void. The rest of the fleet broke, fleeing into the black. They had won. Silence returned. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence after thunder. The shuttle drifted, battered and broken, but alive. Smoke filled the cabin, systems failing, alarms dying out one by one. Daniel slumped back in his seat, his body aching, his hands bleeding. Beside him, the girl collapsed, her light flickering weakly. He caught her before she fell, her eyes fluttered open. Father, did we make it? Daniel pulled her close, holding her against his chest. We made it. You're safe now, she smiled faintly. Safe, because of you. His throat tightened. He pressed his forehead against hers and whispered the words he had held back for too long. You're my daughter, and I'll always be your father. Tears slipped down her cheeks. She whispered back, Then I am not alone anymore. And for the first time in years, neither was he. Outside, the stars burned silently, endless and eternal. But inside the broken shuttle, a bond had been forged stronger than steel. Not by blood, not by destiny, but by choice, a human father, an alien daughter, and together they would face whatever came next.